I really need the WNBA season to start because it just seems like every other day we have something regarding Caitlin Clark, whether it's an article, whether it's people talking about her, whether somebody is putting something out that's drawing a lot of attention, a lot of media craze, a lot of social media buzz, and all those things. But when it comes to this, I feel like this is kind of crazy and this is kind of low key insane because we talk about Caitlin Clark as the 2024 athlete of the year, and now they released a top 100 influential people of 2025 times top 100 for its influence. And Caitlin Clark is not mentioned; she's not on there, and one would say fans are upset about it. People are talking about it because it's one thing to not have her on there, which is based on opinion and based on different criteria that time has set in comparison to like it just being centered around sports. So when we talk about Time's top 100 influence list, we're talking about they have inventors, they have pioneers, they have all these different subcategories, and they list all these different types of people. That's one thing. But I think the issue is when you have Time Magazine naming Caitlin Clark the 2024 athlete of the year, being the first WNBA player to ever don the list, being the second woman overall to make the list, other than Simone Biles in 2021. So when you have that come out, and then you see the sit down interview with Caitlin Clark, and then you have all these things, and then you come out with this list, it doesn't really kind of make sense. And it brings to question the validity of this list. And when we talk about a transformative impact on basketball, the WNBA, it was the most growing sports league in 2024. And largely that has to do with Caitlin Clark and her draft class, but largely that has something to do with Caitlin Clark in general. So when we talk about influence, and we could just talk about what made her that 2024 sports athlete of the year, we're talking about impact on the basketball and overall culture. When we talk about record breaking college career, back to back national championship games, we talk about rookie of the year, talking about first team all WNBA as a rookie. And when we talk about the continued influence that she's had for generating money and endorsement deals and popularity to the sport and helping the sport reach new heights, it's hard to not have Caitlin Clark on Time's top 100 most influenced people for 2025. I think it doesn't make sense because you're basically disregarding everything that you said and stated about her impact in 2024, her being a Times Sports Athlete of the Year, for her not to be on the Times 100 top most influential people doesn't necessarily make sense, and it's kind of crazy. It kind of like makes like, yo, who is running or who's who's selecting the people to be on this list, and maybe it's because some of the backlash that Caitlin Clark got on her, the interview that she did for Times Magazine. Maybe it's because of the fact that they didn't want to highlight her again, even because she's been highlighting her own solo magazine with Time. Maybe that's part of the reason. But for us being influential, influence, everything that Caitlin Clark's her previous year in 2014 was one of the most influential years anybody has probably ever have seen in the sports landscape. So it doesn't make sense. That's why we have people talking about it. That's why it's about to be a big, huge thing going forward with Caitlin Clark not being on Time's top 100 influential list because it just doesn't make sense. It's kind of like, why would she be selected as the sports athlete of the year, first female athlete since 2021, first basketball player outside of LeBron James, and then not be included on this list. It kind of is like a brain fart. Like what? Like it doesn't make sense when you really talking about it, when you're really engaging, when you're really seeing and reading the articles. But reading the article, when you look at pioneers, when you look at innovators, when you look at the subcategories, it kind of makes a little bit more sense. But then in this list, you didn't include Caitlin Clark, but you included Nafessa Collar, included Breonna Stewart. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. But here's Colin basically going off and talking about why this is crazy.
The Lombardi, the Headline News. Okay, Jalen Hurts, fresh off his second Super Bowl appearance, gets the Super Bowl, raises the Lombardi, takes home Super Bowl MVP honors. Colin, following his championship season, Time Magazine has named Jalen to their 100 most influential people. Now, Hurts is one of a handful of athletes to make this year's list, and he was put in the, quote, icons category.
And that's what I'm talking about. Different categories. Icon, pioneer, innovator. It was different categories. And he said a handful. So it was only a handful of players selected to be a part of this top 100 influential list that Times
category. Others included Simone Biles, Serena Williams, Breonna Stewart, Nafessa Collier. Colin, what makes
those are all the people for us, the athlete side?
Someone worthy of a Times 100.
How is
list?
Caitlin Clark not in this?
That's a joke.
I mean, the fact that
Paige Becker should be in this.
Caitlin Clark took the WNBA and they set all-time ratings records.
Mm-hmm.
If Caitlin Clark's not in this, the list is nonsense. Who did the list? Time Magazine?
Yeah.
And there's no Caitlin Clark?
No, I don't think so.
That's idiotic. That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
I think Caitlin Clark is one of the most.
So that's crazy. You come out and Colin's kind of right. It's like it doesn't make sense, especially when you play, when you look at the situation of 2024. She has her own cover, her own magazine, everything that she did for women's basketball. And I don't really necessarily care about the viewership. I really don't care about that. But when we talk about generating money, when we talk about highlighting the sport, when we talk about allowing arenas to be sold out and the popularity of the sport to grow, in the WNBA and women's basketball being the biggest sports league in 2024 for its growth, and she's not influential and she doesn't have any influence and she's not on this list as one of the handful of athletes that are, it brings question to the validity of this list. It also brings question to how she on her own cover and then she doesn't make the top 100.
Influential athletes on the planet right now. She's going firmly up.
In the history of American sports. Could I not argue?
Serena's probably.
Well, no, I'm talking about because women's tennis was popular when Billie Jean King,
Sure.
Chris Everett, Steffi Graf, Martina Navratilova. If you talk about league-changing athletes in America, Tiger in golf.
Yeah. Phelps.
Michael Jordan in basketball.
A league changing. That's, yeah.
Caitlin Clark. Tiger changed golf ratings.
Yeah.
Okay, Michael changed NBA rating. NFL players, no, it's not just about ratings, but literally the WNBA
was a non-existent league.
It was being subsidized by the NBA. They were going to small arenas. They flew on commercial.
Still being subsidized by the NBA, and that's, still not the NBA, the WNBA in general is not a profitable league still, even though Caitlin Clark is in the league right now. She's the most popular, but I understand what he's saying, the point he's trying to get across.
Commercial flights. Mm-hmm. Time Magazine, if you don't have Caitlin Clark, and maybe she is, you have the list.
Yeah, it's not on here.
Okay, that's just dumb. That's a dumb media list. Dumb.
Yep.
Don't know what they're doing. Don't. They're trying to, I don't even know. That's the first name. Again, I love Jalen Hurts, but
Caitlin Clark.
You got to be kidding me. She's the most influential athlete, I would argue, man or woman in America in the last year. Did you see the women's March Madness TV ratings? They lost half of them. Half the ratings just evaporated because she wasn't playing college basketball.
Yeah.
Well, some of the stuff that Colin is saying is not necessarily true because ratings actually were up I believe in the semifinals this past year. So that's not necessarily true. But overall, she's probably the most influential man or woman athlete in the past year, hands down. And we talk about American sports, when we talk about iconic, when we talk about league changing, when you mention Michael Jordan, when you mention Tiger Woods, Michael Phelps, you have to mention Caitlin Clark, even though it was a lot of great women that paved the way for Caitlin Clark and the WNBA. None of them came into the league with this type of impact, with this type of marketing, with this type of viewership, with this type of fandom, with this type of game as well as Caitlin Clark. So her not being on the Times top 100 influential lists doesn't necessarily make sense. And then when we just talk about it and we go down the list and we state things about when we talk about overall influence, elevating the women's basketball in general, that's the ratings talk. I don't really necessarily tired of talking about the ratings and things of that nature because I feel like so many people just get so hooked on ratings. It's like when movies at the box office, people are talking about the box office numbers instead of actually enjoying the product. That starts to get a little old. But for this case, elevating women's basketball, sold out arenas, home and away, both in the college game, both in the WNBA game. She's a media magnet. Anytime you mention Caitlin Clark's name, things have to be talked about, things get addressed, and it brings a lot of attention. We haven't had this on the women's side for as a figure that if you mention her name, is anything that she does, all her greatness, if she plays a bad game, we haven't had this type of talk about a woman in a team sport in a very, very, very long time. I can't really necessarily remember as long as I've been alive. So maybe some of my older folks in the chat, but it's not comparable, to be honest. Michael, no, all the ratings were down, even compared to CC Junior. That's not true. It was a report that came out. ESPN did something, but it was only like for 2 games. So that's what I'm saying. So overall, yes, in context. So when we talk about like her overall influence, inspired the next generation, her competitiveness, her swagger on the basketball court, her fieriness, like she's not buddy on the basketball court. That's refreshing to see, especially in a league where sometimes in hoops in general, it's starting to become buddy. It's starting to become like everybody is friends. When Caitlin Clark steps on the basketball court, she's out to kill. It's like a shark that smells blood in the water. She's hunting. She's pushing the envelope consecutively every time she plays basketball. And then we talk about changing the perspective, the mainstream respect. I think that's the biggest thing that Caitlin Clark has helped achieve on the women's side of basketball, because people have not respected women's basketball, especially on the casual side. And now you got casual fans coming into the league, want to be a part of the league. Caitlin Clark is allowing them to learn about the game, and I think that's her biggest impact. And also, of course, the economic impact with the state of Indianapolis, when we talk about her helping generate $36 million for the state of Indianapolis, and her signing an 8-year, $28 million Nike deal, which is now underpaid. She's an underpaid Nike representative, because she's probably going to be, and I've said this in several streams before, her impact, her influence, hopefully there's a buyout or opt out in year 4 like they do in some contracts, but she's probably going to be the first female athlete to sign a $100 million endorsement deal from Nike. And we'll come back years from now, and y'all say, Amar K. Smith did mention that years, and I'll pull up the tape and I'll be like, hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. But that's here nor there when we talk about overall influence. Caitlin Clark definitely should be on Times 100 most influential people of this year, without a doubt. Even on a handful of athletes, and then Breanna Stewart and the Festa Collar, they're on there. But once again, it's in the subdivision category. Like I think it was the innovators or pioneers. Like what they did this year, the Festa Collar, Breanna Stewart, both competing and gave us one of the best WNBA finals we have ever seen, going all the way to Game 5, very phenomenal. And then not having to take their families and go play overseas like traditionally WNBA players tend to do to get more money. They created a new inaugural unrivaled sports league that is paying women more money than they're going to make in the WNBA and the investors. And it was the first season. It was some hiccups along the way, but it was also still very exciting. And it gave us a new perspective on 303 basketball because it was the first time we saw 303 basketball be in full court. And now you have it where Paige Beckers, who just got drafted by the Dallas Wings, she signed a 3-year contract for the unrivaled league that's going to pay her way more money than she's going to make in her rookie scale contract. So they definitely, we talk about innovators or pioneers, like they definitely deserve to be on the list. But I can argue that for its overall influence, regardless of what subcategory you want to put Caitlin Clark in, she deserves to be on the list as well. So it's crazy. And the NBA playoffs is about to start. It's a lot of teams. We've got the play-in games going on today. Nobody's necessarily probably going to watch that. So it's crazy. It's crazy. Yes, state of Indiana, city of Indianapolis. That's what I meant. Sorry, Michael. Michael's in the chat. Sorry. You had the same issue with the NBA draft. I don't know what you're talking about, Mike. Chat. Let me know what you're talking about. But yeah, as far as like the NBA, a lot of great matchups. A lot of. I'm gonna wait to do a NBA stream. But you know what I want to talk about real quick is Kylian Mbappe and Real Madrid losing in the championship league. They didn't even make it to the semifinals after they won the finals last year before Mbappe came on. And this was like supposed to be the Avengers. This was like when you're adding the best player in soccer to an already great team. And it just didn't work the entire year, regardless of Mbappe's not playing in his right position. But when you have that type of roster, that type of talent, the most talented team in Europe, and you don't necessarily get it done, it's going to raise questions. And this outing that Real Madrid losing to Arsenal, they just didn't lose. They lost 2-1 in the second leg. But they also they lost 2-1, but they also lost over. It was like 1-5, 5-1 aggregate. That's what they lost. So that means 5 goals scored for Arsenal in the past 2 games, and they only scored 1 goal. And you got Vinicius Jr., you got Mbappe, and you got Bellingham, and it just doesn't necessarily make sense. And it feels like Mbappe is going to take a lot of the heat for it because his overall first year with Real Madrid hasn't been – it's been a lot of pressure. It's been a lot of hype, but he hasn't really necessarily lived up to the expectations that most people have probably expected him to live up to. And with them not even making the semifinals of the championship league, and for people that are new to soccer, that's like the biggest tournament. That's like basically when you talk about any Super Bowl, any NBA finals, any World Series, it's like a tournament with all the best European teams, and then you compete and you try to win the championship at the end and make it to the finals. But it's frustrating if you're Kylian Mbappe because you never won one, and you go to Real Madrid on a free transfer and you're not playing in your position. You're struggling a little bit early on, and you're starting to find your rhythm, but you're not necessarily living up to the hype or the expectations that most people expected you to. And then you kind of have like this villain, not too much like LeBron James, for it's like people viewed him as a villain for going to Real Madrid, but people definitely did not like the situation that led to him going. And then to add smoke onto that, he wasn't playing up to par. He's still in great form. He's still one of the best players in the world, but he didn't look like the best player in the world on most of his first tenure with Real Madrid. And their season is still going to continue. The season's not going to be over until almost August. But it was very underwhelming for the Champions League and Real Madrid losing and not making it to the semifinals. And it reminds me of Kylian Mbappe, similar to LeBron James in his first stint with the Miami Heat. A lot of pressure, a lot of hate, a lot of conversation. But the only thing about that season with LeBron James is that he went out and he won the MVP. So he went out and won the MVP. He dominated the regular season, but he came short in the finals where it mattered the most. Kylian Mbappe has had a decent season, decent first year with Real Madrid, and he's going to be better, and they're going to figure it out, I believe so. But at the same time, him falling short feels like how I felt when LeBron James and the Miami Heat fell short in their first year together in the NBA Finals. So it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy, chat. Kind of crazy, chat. And then for the teams that we know so far, for the Western Conference, we got the Denver Nuggets versus the Los Angeles Clippers. We got the Houston Rockets versus the Golden State Warriors. I think those are the most two exciting first round matchups. We got Minnesota versus the Los Angeles Lakers. So I guess those three are very intriguing matchups in the first round of the playoffs, and I'm going to be locked in. Also, the Bucks and the Indiana Pacers. I think those are going to be the four matchups that can possibly wouldn't surprise me if it goes 6 to 7 games, and wouldn't surprise me if whichever team wins. I think they both have all those four matchups. I think all the teams can come out victorious in a series. I'm going to take forward to Lakers and Minnesota because I believe Minnesota has size. They have the size and the athleticism that can probably cause some trouble with LeBron James, Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, and the crew. But I'm gonna take the Los Angeles Lakers in 6 or 7 games. I think they should get it done because I think Luka Doncic and LeBron James, their duel is going to be enough to get them out of the first round, and it should be. But I can see it being 6 games. But if those two are clicking and Austin Reeves is playing like the Austin Reeves we've seen in the regular season, they could necessarily, if they get hot, they could get it done earlier. Who knows? But I think the athleticism and size can disrupt what the Los Angeles Lakers like to do. But I still think the Los Angeles Lakers are going to come out on top. So I'm going to say the Los Angeles Lakers in 6 over the Minnesota Timberwolves, Golden State Warriors, and Houston Rockets. Houston Rockets got one of the best coaches in the league, in the world. They're a young team. Most have never been to the playoffs before. And I just believe in Jimmy Butler, who becomes a top 10 basketball player and one of the greatest playoff risers almost every year when the playoffs come around. I still believe in Stephen Curry and Draymond Green. And I think they got to play Jonathan Kuminga in this series with the athletic players that Houston has. I think he can be a factor. He can be an X factor. I know he didn't play in the last game in the regular season, but I think he has to play. I think he has to get minutes and also has to get that confidence as well. But I'm going to pick the Golden State Warriors in 7. And I know the Houston Rockets aren't any scrubs, but I'm going to pick the Golden State Warriors in 7 off experience alone. I'm going to give it to the Golden State Warriors. And then when we talk about Los Angeles Clippers and the Denver Nuggets, I got to see somebody beat Nikola Jokic to believe he's going to be in the first round. I don't think they have an answer for Nikola Jokic. I just don't. I like the wings that they have and the perimeter defenders that the Los Angeles Clippers have, but James Harden, Kawhi Leonard is looking right. He's looking healthy. Personally, I want the Los Angeles Clippers to win, but I just feel like they don't have an answer for Nikola Jokic, who is a facilitator, who's a point center, who is extremely dominant and effective. And I just think the best player in the world with the core that he has, especially Jamal Murray, is healthy and right. I still believe in that core, as crazy as that seems. So I'm gonna pick the Denver Nuggets in 6 games, and then I'm gonna pick the Pacers and the Bucks. I'm picking the Bucks simply because they have Giannis Antetokounmpo, similar to the Denver Nuggets having Nikola Jokic, because I just feel like the 2 best players in the world are going to figure out ways to get things done in the first round at least. And I think their matchups work in their favor because they're playing young teams, and they're playing teams where, the Pacers are kind of young. They're playing teams where I feel like they can't There's nothing to exploit them from going off and dominating. Like you can't. They're not. The Pacers have nothing to stop Giannis Antetokounmpo. The Clippers don't have anything to stop Nikola Jokic. And for its like defensive structures and systems, I think that necessarily matters. Even though I like the Clippers defensively, I think they got players they can throw at Nikola Jokic. I just don't think it's going to necessarily matter. But for it's like the Pacers, they have nobody that can stop Giannis Antetokounmpo at all. So I'm gonna roll with the Bucks in 7. So it's gonna be interesting. That's just a little preview, and I'm gonna be try to stream almost every other day for the big national televised games. But it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be very exciting. The playoffs are here, man. But make sure y'all lock in. Appreciate all y'all who hopped in the chat. It's your boy Mark K. Smith. Make sure you go like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on AKIS NBA and all the social media platforms. Talking to WNBA, talking to NBA, of course. Always remember, faith without works is dead. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding, and always acknowledge Him, and He will direct your path. I'm gone, man. Peace.